Hello everyone, this is Coach Cameron Roberts here, your friend in business, success and marketing. Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of our podcast and hangout program, #On Deck with Coach Cameron. For today's expert interview, we have a gentleman called Callum Laing. Callum has started, built, bought and sold half a dozen businesses across a range of industries across 2 continents. He is the owner of Fitness Buffet, a company delivering employee wellness solutions in 11 countries. He's also a director of Entrevo Asia, a company helping executives and business owners become a key person of influence in their industry. Now, Callum is an author, a speaker, and an experienced entrepreneur. So thank you very much for joining us today, Callum.
That's a pleasure, Cameron. Looking forward to it.
Now, I'm based in Australia here, and Callum, you're in Singapore. So tell my listeners, and for those people who are listening to the podcast or Hangout, a little bit about yourself. You know, how did you become who you are and where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I actually started not too far from you. I was born in New Zealand, but I mainly grew up in the UK. Started doing business in Europe. I was lucky enough to start my first business at the height of the .com boom, and it was in the telco industry. So we were very successful at that time, which of course I thought was purely down to my own skills. And until the .com bubble burst, I discovered actually I wasn't as clever as I thought. But even then, so that was, we set that company up in Holland. But even then, I was sort of fascinated by what was going on in Asia, and I could just see all the trends were pointing to this explosion of stuff happening in Asia. So I was very keen to get over here, and ended up moving over here about 13, 14 years ago.
Wow.
And I started off in Thailand, which is it's a great place, and it was a good opportunity to kind of cut my teeth on, I guess, learning some more of the tricks of the trade of being an entrepreneur. And then I moved across from Thailand to Singapore about 4 years ago, and now my time is mainly spent working with predominantly small business owners that are looking to increase their company valuations, and that's either through the development of intellectual property, but increasingly it's also through sort of some clever ways for them to exit their business and move to the next level.
Very good, very good. Now Callum, as a veteran of doing business throughout the world, where did your passion come from starting businesses? Where did it all come from initially?
So it's a good question. I think it started merely as a means to an end. When I was growing up as a kid, I was always looking for ways to generate some more pocket money. So I think the first business was cleaning cars. Just not the tops of them because I couldn't reach, and then just built it up. Had a little jewelry business, had an ice cream business supplying sort of bars and restaurants in Cambridge, and so that was really how it started. Maybe that's what I'm still looking to do, just add pocket money. No, I think
the pockets just get bigger, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. I think once I kind of entered the workforce, I worked for some very cool companies, but I also had that frustration that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have, which is things aren't moving fast enough, or there's problems that I can see and want to solve, and so I jumped into trying to solve those problems, and quickly made myself unemployable. So then I had no option other than to keep building businesses.
Yeah, it's almost one of those things, isn't it? You can't do anything else. You end up being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. It's Well, I mean, the interesting thing is now that I sort of I'm more involved with working with other entrepreneurs, and one of the things that I do notice is that fundamentally entrepreneurship is about um, taking resources to create something greater than was there before.
Yeah.
And actually, you realise that companies are often a great method for doing that. And you see some of the top entrepreneurs in the world are actually going back and signing up as employees with
Yeah.
companies like Google and Amazon, just because it gives them access to resources that it would take decades to acquire on their
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've sort of become a little bit less antagonistic towards the corporate world.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's another method of achieving the goals.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, you work with a lot of small business owners and business owners, as you
Yeah.
said. What do you believe makes a great business in your experience with all the businesses that you've had throughout the world?
Fundamentally, comes down to solving a problem,
Right.
and creating value. I think the all of the tactics and the methodologies that people put out there for improving your business are really irrelevant if you're not solving somebody's problem,
Mm.
and creating value around that. And I see a lot of business owners that spend a lot of time doing the busy work of making beautiful logos and fantastic websites and all of those good things, and they haven't really figured out what's the problem that they're solving. How do they create value in the world? And the reality is that if you can solve a problem for your customer to an extent that they'll pay for it, you can have terrible customer service. You can have a terrible company name and hideous logo and all of those things, and customers will still come back to you because you solve a problem, and
Mm.
that's what's needed. Now, obviously, I'm not advocating having a terrible logo,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
all of that, but if
Yeah.
you don't have that stuff sorted out, it doesn't matter how pretty the rest of the business is, you're never really going to move forward.
Yeah. I guess the other way of putting it is if you did all the other stuff, like the logo, the website, but you didn't solve problems and didn't value add, you wouldn't have a successful business, would you? Or any
Absolutely not.
business. Yeah.
No, definitely. It all starts with understanding your market and how you can make their lives better in one way or another.
Yeah. Now, Callum, in my experience, I reckon a lot of people get into business, and they have lots of planning and lots of preparation to get the thing off the ground. As you probably know, with the businesses that you've created, they take a little bit of energy to get up and running, don't they?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, what do you think is the most important thing around that? When someone starts a business, what should they be thinking about? And, once they get it off the ground and they grow it, when and if should they sell it?
Uh, so I think there's two
There's two questions.
fairly
I
two fairly
loaded that one
good
up on you.
questions. Yeah.
So I guess it's
Let me start with the first one, sort of
yeah,
around building the business. I think one of the nice things about the times that we live in now compared to even 5 or 10 years ago is it's much easier to prove a need in the market and to for example, the ability to go out and create, for example, Kickstarter campaigns or other crowdfunding campaigns
yeah,
and launch products before you've actually had to invest in building a business vehicle around it. And so I think fundamentally you need to be getting that traction from customers in order to be going forward. So I'm a big advocate of trying to sell stuff before you've actually made it,
yeah,
so that you know that you've got real customers there. Um, and I know you've got a sports background. I think the other thing that is critical is keeping momentum up, seeing progress. So tracking the little wins that you make as you move forward, because it does take a lot of energy. It is exhausting, and it is, you go through phases when everyone you talk to seems to say no,
Yeah.
and it can be, it can be a pretty tough journey. So I think just checking in with the market on a regular basis and trying to get confirmation, financial confirmation that you're working the right way, definitely helps. And then just acknowledging the wins as you go through it.
That's very good.
Yeah, and then the second question around, what was it? When do you think you
Like,
should
yeah,
exit?
yeah. Should you either sell a business? When do you sell? At what stage do you exit a business, if at all?
Yeah, so I work with an interesting gentleman called Jeremy Harbour, and so we have a business together called Unity Group that um, works with businesses to help them understand the the exit piece of the business. And his philosophy is very simple: that the correct time to sell is now.
Right.
Um, and I've only once disagreed with him on that principle, and it ended up costing me over $1 million in cash, because I was having such fun running the business at the time. And he said I should sell it, and I said, no, I'm having too much fun. It's spitting off lots of money. It's all good. And then 3 months later or 4 months later, Bear Stearns went out of business, and the 2008-2009 crash happened,
Yeah.
and I took a kicking, and so now I listen to Jeremy when he tells me these things.
Yeah.
But I think more important than sort of that answer is just a lot of people go into starting business without really understanding the end game and the end exit. And for example, a lot of people go into business thinking it's going to give them money and freedom, and actually, what for 90% of small business owners, it takes away all your money and takes away all your freedom. And actually, the two things that you end up, because they get taken away from you, the two things you value most are time and money, and the way you get your time and money back is to sell your business. And that once you sell your business, it allows you to start playing a bigger game and thinking more strategically. But the challenge with that is that most people don't understand what someone's looking for when they buy a business. So there's kind of this idea of, okay, I'll build my business up to a few million, and then I'll find someone that wants to buy it. And for most of us, and certainly this was the case for me, I was building these businesses, but I actually had no idea of what acquiring companies were looking for.
Yeah.
And so I give the example that the reason that happens is that as business owners, we kind of end up obsessing all day, every day on customer value. Like, how do we create more customer value so that we can serve our clients better? And we kind of inherently think we understand shareholder value, but I don't think you ever really understand shareholder value until you start looking at acquiring companies yourself. And then you come at it with a very different mindset. Again, when I use that example with Jeremy, his point was, well, that's right, but you obsess on customer value, but you've only got one customer, and your one customer is the company that's going to buy you, or the individual that's going to buy your business. So yeah, it's a different way of looking at it. But I think to my mind, it's something that every entrepreneur, I always say, as an entrepreneur, you should actively go out and try and buy another company, even if you haven't got money in the bank to do that. and there's ways of doing that. But even if you just get all the way up to the final process and then change your mind or back out from it, just the process of buying another company will completely change the way you view your own company. I remember for myself when I got approached by a company that was looking for a new owner, and I didn't have any money at the time. I was stretched running my own business. But I thought it would be interesting to see how other people run their businesses. And so I learned two things by kind of going in and doing a little bit of due diligence on that business. The first thing I learned was that when you're running your own business, you know that the business is held together with masking tape and chicken wire.
Yeah.
But everybody else's business looks perfect and shiny on the outside.
Yeah.
So you assume that everybody else's business is really well organized. And when you go in and do due diligence on a company, you realize that actually everybody's business is held together with chicken wire masking tape. So that alone is great for the ego.
Yeah.
The second thing that happens is when you're actually thinking about putting your own money into a company, you look at it very critically. And so I remember saying to the current owner, I don't understand. Can you explain why you work with this client? Because as far as I can tell, every time you serve this client, you lose money. And he was like, yeah, I know, but they've been with us from the start, and they're a nice client to have. And so I was kind of like, well, look, if I'm going to buy the company, I'm definitely going to stop working with that client. And then I said, and can you explain that member of staff that you've got? And, as far as I can tell, she hasn't done anything since 1974. And he goes, oh well, yeah, I know, but she's a friend of the family, and we can't tell her not to come into work, and so you kind of have this and you look at the other business and you think, crikey, no wonder they're struggling.
Yeah.
And then of course I kind of turned around and looked at my own business with that fresh set of eyes, and I was like, oh, why am I serving that client, and why do I have that department?
Yeah.
And you realize that a lot of the stuff that you do is driven around customer value, but it's not actually around shareholder value. So
Right. That's
yeah,
very
it's an
good.
interesting exercise.
Now, I know a lot of, I've read your website, and on your website and the resources you have, you talk a lot about exit valuations. For those who are listening that have never heard of that term before, what is it and why is it so important?
For most people, like I said, because I think a lot of people don't really have a good understanding of the end game of selling a business.
Yeah.
They don't think too much about this, and oftentimes I find a lot of small business owners have built nice little businesses, but they're not actually worth anything. Or they're worth. It's a typical valuation of a business is the amount of profit you make minus a multiple, times a multiple gives you the valuation. So depending on industries and how much assets you've created in the business, that multiple could be anything. And typically for a small service-based business, the multiples are very low, sort of 1 or 2 times profit, because there's a large degree of risk associated with buying a small business. When the owner leaves, other clients going to leave, other staff going to leave. You compare that with a bigger business, the valuation, multiple valuation is much, much higher because there's much less risk that the business is going to fall over. And then if you look at the ridiculous .com Silicon Valley type valuations, that's around the scalability of the business. So the more scalable the business, the higher the valuations.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting to me and where I'm spending a lot of my time right now is taking that idea of one of the metrics that keeps prices for businesses low is the inherent risk of a small business. Yet, so we're doing something that we call a roll-up at the moment, where we're taking a number of marketing companies that, on their own, they might be doing about 5 million in revenue, 1 million in profit, they would have a valuation of $2 or $3 million. But if we put 10 of those companies together, suddenly we've got a $50 million business.
Yeah.
And now you could get an 8 times multiple for that business, because
Yeah.
for an investor it's a lot less risk, but geographic diversity and all these other things. So yeah, understanding the game, understanding the bigger picture game is an important piece. And I also think the other reason why it's valuable is to understand, again, coming back to what buying companies want. Oftentimes they want the owner to stick around for 2 or 3 years and try and see through on these new targets, and so they'll, even if they're paying you X million dollars, you might not get those X million dollars until you've worked for them for 2 or 3 years to integrate the business and hit these targets. And by the time most business owners come to think about selling the company, the last thing they want to do is go and be an employee for someone else for 3 years.
Yeah, because they've already worked there, haven't they?
Exactly.
They're selling it because they want to get out.
Exactly. So just understanding that game and then playing the game differently allows you to have a lot more fun with it.
It's cool. Now, Callum, if we can flip topics for a minute and go to the other end of that scale, you've also been highly successful at buying businesses, in different countries throughout the world. If I was going to buy a business as a small to medium business owner, what should I be looking for before I commit my time, money, and energy?
So the answer I'd give you now is very different from the answer I'd have given you a few years ago. But the answer I give you now is, don't buy it unless you know who you're going to sell it to.
Right. That's very good.
So otherwise, what there's a tendency to do is just buy yourself a job. And us silly entrepreneurs that see problems everywhere and want to fix them, we start looking at these businesses and go, great, I could buy that, and then I could go in and I could fix this and I could fix that, and suddenly you've bought a business which should have been an investment, and you're now working 14 hours a day trying to get the thing where you want it to be.
Yeah.
So I think understanding it more as an investment play rather than kind of an entrepreneurial play, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, it just means coming at it from a different way. One of the things that I've sort of used at a micro level to a fair amount of success in my businesses is to work with partnerships. I'm a huge believer in not trying to reinvent the wheel. If somebody's already got a distribution channel, find a way to partner with them. If somebody's already got great products, find a way to partner with them. And actually, you can take that thinking up to the macro level. When you're looking at a business, that there's the opportunity often, rather than just buying that business, is to buy 2 or 3 businesses and put them together, and the whole becomes much more valuable than the individual pieces.
That's very good.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't. There's sort of a perception that in order to buy businesses you need lots of money, but there's actually a number of ways that you can do it. So again, my business partner Jeremy Harbour is a bit of an expert in this, and he's now, I think he's bought and sold 40 different companies, and his average buying price is £1. So he structures the deals in such a way that it works for everyone, but it doesn't involve him putting cash up front.
Yeah, that's very good.
Which is it's a good discipline to have. It forces you to get creative.
Yeah. Now you've given us a wealth of information already, and have you got any insider secrets, maybe on starting, growing, and selling businesses? Like one takeaway for each, maybe.
Well, I'm kind of I'm a little bit jaded with starting businesses now. I think starting businesses makes a lot of sense where you've got a very, very proven proven demand. The people I know now that successfully start businesses, they've already pre-sold a lot of the products that they're going to create, so that they don't have to go through that fighting with trying to find market fit. So from a starting perspective, I would definitely say, make sure you've got money coming in, so you're not having to deal with that constant challenge that most small businesses start with.
Right.
From a growing perspective, as I mentioned, I'm a huge proponent of partnerships.
Yeah.
I've got a book hopefully coming out later this year called Progressive Partnerships, which is really built on some of the stories and some of the techniques I've used to build businesses throughout the years, leveraging off other people's resources in order to build up. And you notice that you can kind of look at inflection points in any company, any successful company, where they've done strategic partnerships which have taken the business to the next level. So definitely, from a growing perspective, partnerships is great. And then I guess one of the interesting things that I've learned relatively recently, sort of around the exit piece, is actually one of the easiest ways to make yourself attractive to a buyer is to start acquiring other companies. Because as I mentioned, there's this, the bigger you get, the more attractive you become. And most small businesses kind of, our solution to everything is to invest more time and money in sales and marketing. And actually, you could go out and acquire a company and double your year's revenue in an afternoon. That makes you that much more attractive to buying companies. So,
that's good, isn't it?
That would be my in a nutshell.
Yep. Thanks for that. That was really good. Hey, you're based in the Asia Pacific regions in Singapore. Yep. Where do you see business going in that region in the next 3 to 5 years, and are there any potential opportunities we should be looking out for?
There's ridiculous amounts of opportunities here, which is why I moved out here. I think any time where you've got big shifts, big macro trend shifts happening, it creates a lot of disruption. And any time you've got disruption, you get value differentials, and that's where entrepreneurs have their fun, is spotting those value differentials and getting into the middle of them. So I think there's this huge switch happening in Asia at the moment from rural to urban communities. So you've got that trend occurring, which is creating lots of opportunities. And then you've just got this global technology trend, which is speeding up. And so what's happening is you're getting a leapfrogging. So you've got these countries that were, sort of, relatively speaking, doing nothing, that suddenly are able to leapfrog some of the Western countries in terms of their ability to be productive and everything else, because of the new technologies. So I mean, to my mind, this is the most exciting place in the world to be right now, and it's huge opportunities and huge number of people, and it's good fun.
Oh, that's good. Now, if we could change gears for a little minute, what have you personally learnt from being a speaker, an author, veteran of helping business owners with their exit valuations?
Yeah, so the speaker, so I guess two or three things separately. Speaker, I definitely find that just law of leverage, it's much more effective to be speaking to X hundred people at a time than one person at a time. Much more likely to get people that resonate with your views and want to come and work with you come out of that. I think, as you know, one of the greatest things about being a speaker is not even the conference attendees, but it's the other speakers that you get to meet on stage and end up forming great partnerships with them. So that's the speaker piece. The author piece, The biggest thing I think is actually the clarity you get when you force yourself to kind of take some vague amorphous ideas or beliefs that you have and try and turn them into something that other people can get value from. It forces you to question some of what you're doing. So I find that piece very useful, and also just with the the ability for you to put out an article or content now, and it never ceases to amaze me how many people kind of find that content, or
It's incredible, isn't it?
it really is, and sort of articles that you wrote years ago popping up, and people going, yeah, no, I really got value from that, and I've used that, and so it's an incredibly powerful medium for getting your ideas out and building. I touched earlier at the beginning about building intellectual property in your business. That's one of the key ways of doing that. So that's the speaking and the authoring, and then selling businesses or exiting businesses. I think it's really just a shift in mindset of just understanding that there's a wealth of content out there about the kind of tactics around starting and building businesses.
Yep.
There's not actually that much about the exit piece. But realistically, if you go back and look at any successful entrepreneurs, very few people actually make good money from running a business. All the money they make is when they exit. So if you're going into entrepreneurship to get more time and more money, then actually what you want to be doing is doing more exits. So how can you set up a business to be exiting it sooner or more often? So it's not a particularly romantic entrepreneurial view, but it's I wish I'd understood it a lot earlier.
That's good. Now, Callum, as we wrap things up today, because we've reached our time that we can spend together, I want to say a big thank you very much for being on the show. But before we go, if anyone wants to connect with you online or offline, how should they do that?
Yeah, so look, I'm always looking for businesses that are looking to, they've got cool products, they've got cool stuff, and they're looking to launch in Asia. I've got a big network of people I can plug them into here. So easiest thing is just go to my website, which is callumlaing.com, or I'm on Twitter, Laing Callum. But either of those it's a good place to hit me up, and look forward to hearing from your listeners.
Okay. Well, Callum, thank you very much for being on the show today. Really appreciate the time and effort and all the valuable information that you shared with both myself and also the listeners. So thanks, Callum.
My pleasure. It's been great fun.
All right. Cheers, mate. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Callum.
Bye.